Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is take three, part two of my stream of Ostranauts. Uh, in part one, we completed character creation, which is a bit tricky and pays a fair amount of homage to the classic sci-fi tabletop role-playing game Traveller, where notoriously you could actually die during character creation. Um, your basic goal here is to get out of character creation before you're too old to with minimal injuries and having gained some useful skills to use in your career going to full forward. Right now, we're about to unpause the world and we're going to just let the game guide us, except at a couple of points, which I'll point out along the way. So the first thing it's telling us is that we can highlight interactables and hotkeys. And when we do that, it'll point out things in the environment that we can actually interact with. For instance, we can use the sink. Where we can see ourselves in the mirror and adjust our appearance if we wanted to. Um, it wants us to, next thing it wants us to do is, and see how it helpfully highlighted it, is toggle the power on this switch, which will engage the power for the rest of the room that we're in. Now it wants us to check in our inventory. And right now we've got our ubiquitous phone and this is what the game calls a boiler suit, which we're really only putting on right this moment so that we can pull something out of it. And a loose fitting garment covering the whole body, also known as a boiler suit. Wearing one will protect your modesty and little else. Yellow is sometimes associated with optimism and gaiety. It is also associated with high visibility maintenance work, which is why we have that from our time as a shipbreaker in the yard. So the next thing it's going to tell us is to go over to this rack here, which it again helpfully highlights, and grab our pressure suit, which is what we're going to wear for clothes for now until we can get something better. The helmet that goes with that pressure suit, which looks like it's not in ideal shape, so probably should do some maintenance on that sooner than later. And it also includes a little lamp to help us see around, which we can turn on. Yeah, not much impact here because we're already in a well-lit room, but if we were somewhere else where there was little to no lighting, it'd make a huge difference. Now, also in this rack, potentially the most important thing at this moment, is a tote bag. And it's got a relatively small inventory, but it's better than what we had a moment ago. We're also going to pick up this toolbox off the ground. We're going to discover that we have some basic tools to get us started. We're going to hopefully replace those soon with something much better, ideally before we leave the station, either by scavenging them from a locker somewhere or actually just outright purchasing one. Now, keep in mind that our funds are rather limited. Ideally, we would have enough money to get a much better pressure suit where it actually has a air exchange system and rather than just dependent on the oxygen that's trapped in the suit when we put the helmet on, which means you got a very short time for working in vacuum or under pressurized areas while in the suit we're wearing right now. So it's not giving us any further guidance in here, so I'm just going to look at a couple things real quick. I'm going to grab that water that we found in the boiler suit and see if there's anything in the fridge. There is. There's an empty water pouch. Now, we can interact with the sink, and there's enough here in the sink which we could directly dispense by interacting with the sink, or we can just pull it over to the inventory. Now, this is something we can potentially use when we're thirsty, which will be indicated down here, or just simply sell because it will, water's valuable. uh, Ironically, it's much more valuable than the vodka or rice wine, which you could use to the water to distill it into. The door to K-Leg Station slides open, and you're greeted by the familiar aroma of station vendor fare: spot, prawn, stir fry, and soya curry, kebab of chicken and yaya spice rub, Szechuan beef with pink peppercorn. Your head knows the meat is aquaponic or lab grown or worse, but your heart tells you that anything prepared by human hands is better than trencher's chow. We'll come back to trenchers in a moment. Tired looking spacers circulate between the bunks, the refuel kiosk, and the breaker yard, moving in and out of the gossamer haze of cigarette smoke that is the permanent fixture on the station. Smokes are Sangara Viceroys, the breaker brand of choice. Folks here will chain smoke them unfiltered no matter how many times the employer execs find them for overworking the CO2 scrubbers. Your new ship is waiting in port, not far from the kiosk hub and scrap shops. Once you find it, you can finally undock from this rock. If you want to strip ships for salvage, all you need are the hand tools you own, but you'll need a welder to start remodeling and repairing hulls. Either way, if you're lucky, you can finally start making a living. Something beyond the corporate sponsored rat race of breaking ships for a daily wage, a life you can call your own. So our first goal here is to get that welder so that we can actually repair and move things around. And our ship is, as I've mentioned previously, basically an eggshell. So that's why we desperately need a much better suit than what we got right now. We wander down here. It gets dark, but as you may remember, we've got a convenient lamp. We're going to shed a little light on the subject, and there's another one of those power switches. And that turned on this door. Now, if we go down this way, we'll discover another door and no power switch to power it on. But it does give us an option to, we can't, opening it won't do any good. It does give us the option to pry. Now, we don't have anything to pry with at this moment. And it would go and fetch this on its own, but right down here happens to be a crowbar. So we're going to just put that in our hand. This is one of the main tools we need to get started here. So we can pry open this door now. Now we didn't need to, we could have just left it the way it was. We also can look at the power grid and see that if we have a piece of conduit, we could get this door powered again. Now we can't close it because it's not powered. We can't go in the lock and hack it or to change the pin, or if it was locked, to just be able to open it, because again, there's no power right now, but that's something that's solvable. We go back this way, we run into another door, and this time we can't pry, and the power's off because it's telling us it's locked. So we've got to restore power to this one if we're going to use it. Now, sooner or later, I'll get in, hack my way into this room and this room and loot it for anything that's worth. Now, that hacking the door itself is potentially a crime, get us in trouble if anybody sees us. But once we're inside, we're free to root and loot as we choose. Now, here's another little tutorial here, which is basically to take this piece of conduit and install it right here. We can do that by just simply telling it to install. Now, once we install something on the station, even though we're the one that installed it, if we uninstall it, that's potentially a crime, committing damage to the station if somebody witnesses us doing it. Speed this up a little bit. And the power came on, and now we can just walk right in. I'm going to put away the crowbar for now, but pull that lamp back out so we can actually see what we're doing here. So it wants us to visit the ship, which we will do, but maybe not quite as quick as it wants us to. Nice. Okay. So we uncovered two very important things by following the tutorial here and then exploring the room once we had the door open. One is we found a welder, which is in moderately good condition and has a full charge. Now, as we were, if we hold that in our hand, we can actually see the battery itself, which is again in moderately good condition. So that charge is sort of a false 100. If we restore that battery, we'll find out that the charge is really only, 60, 70%. But for now, this is fine. We also found a knife, which is nice because if somebody attacks us, we've got some options other than the crowbar. Again, we'll explore all this, open all the doors. I'm a loot goblin. I really like to grab everything that isn't tied down, partly because all of it's potentially saleable, which gets us some cash in the bank and gives us the ability to purchase the things we really need. One of the things we're going to want to have right now is our next meal. Now, the interesting thing is that here where the breakers, the poorest of the poor are, the prices are the highest. And if we went to the transfer station for the ultra rich who can afford private residences in a gated community, the street cart there actually has lower prices. But for now, we're going to grab that spot prawn curry stir fry that we smelled earlier because that just sounds awesome. And we haven't set up a barter zone yet, so we just want to pay for it and it's going to show up in our hand, hopefully here. There it is. Lovely. And we're not hungry right now, so we're just going to stick it in our backpack. Turn our lamp back off to save some power and keep moving. This is an important thing to interact with the supply kiosk. We can buy clothing. If we smoke, we can buy cigarettes. They're quite expensive, but we can get large containers of water, which are very nice. Containers of alcohol. We've got some small pouches of water to tide us over for now. And the trenchers. Now, the reason why we bought the street cart stuff is we really don't want to fall back on this unless we're desperate. It's cheap, but it's also probably more disgusting than any school lunchroom food you ever had or hospital food you ever had. We can also get basic supplies for our uh, ship in order to upgrade it. We buy another pressure suit like the one we've already got. Ultimately, we'll want to get this right here, but you can see that between the suit itself and the helmet, it's going to cost us a little over $13,500. And that's not something we've got in the bank right this moment. We'll also need a, a filter for it, an oxygen bottle, and if it's not included, the battery for it. Ultimately, we can either find or salvage and repair a battery charger for that battery. Um, but the easiest thing for now is just to um, move on with what we've got and know that this is something we might potentially need to come back for. So, close out episode 1 here. Episode 2, I'm sorry. We're going to just take a quick look at our ship, which is anytime I walk into an airlock, I always go through a little process. So basically doing a suit check. One, I've got the suit on, and if it's a more complicated suit, I'm checking my oxygen, I'm checking the battery, I'm checking the CO2 filter to make sure they're all operational. And ideally, I have a backup for all 3 of those items as well, um, just in case. You know, we have a limited amount of time here because this suit is only going to uh, let us be out in the vacuum or, indeed enclose up the suit, even if we're not in vacuum, for as long as the air we've got trapped inside. Now, it's telling us we can't go through the airlock because the roster is forbidding us to, but we can fix that. So we set it to open airlocks, or opening airlocks is allowed. We can tell that we've got our helmet on because we've got the limited vision. So we're just going to go right on out the airlock. And here is our scrap heap of a ship. We're just going to take a quick sort of swim around it, see what it looks like on the outside. We've got a thruster here, got a second one here. We've got a full-size ship battery, which is enough to keep us going for quite a while, but we're going to want to expand that soon. We've got this little sort of outdoor platform, which we're going to try to expand as quickly as possible. Maybe get some walls around so that we've got an airlock here so we can move from the station into the ship into the bridge area without actually losing air or having to expose ourselves to vacuum. That'll be a nice step up from what we got right now. To preserve this area, we're not going to open this door yet, but we've got a nav station and a oxygen pump with a oxygen canister. So this is what keeps the oxygen in here. Ideally, as quickly as possible, we want to add a second pump to fill put nitrogen into the atmosphere so that we are both safer because pure oxygen has an extreme risk of fire, and because it's a wasteful use of something that's very expensive that can be used also to, whereas the oxygen is expensive, you need it to breathe. Um, The nitrogen is relatively cheap, so much so that we use it to power our ship, which is what this little puppy right here is. It's an intake with a nitrogen can, and it feeds these thrusters, and we use it to jet about. Now, before we launch off into space, you can see how lots of things are pretty worn down. We're going to spend some time using that welder to get these up to snuff and make our ship a little less of a death trap than it is right now. You know, things, simple things like fixing the lights and the floor. Well, this is actually isn't even a floor tile. It's just a patch which could fail at any moment. But it's better than having nothing if this was an enclosed area. I believe there's another one here. Yeah, this wall is patched as well. Remember, I said this was a death trap. It was only technically legal for sale. All right, having visited the ship, we're going to walk back into the station, and then we're going to put a cut right here and come back shortly with some more station exploration and hopefully getting a hold of some of these uh, more useful tools and a better suit so that we can survive our death trap of a ship. And there's our uh, suit warning us that we're running out of air. So take that helmet off now that we're back safely inside, and we can breathe again. And I'll see you in a bit for episode 3.